Ready to break free from algorithms, vanity PR, and money-sucking ads? My name's Larissa Werstiak, and I've learned in 8 years of jewelry marketing that content is the crown jewel. My agency, Joy Joya, takes a holistic approach, leading with laser-focused storytelling, impactful content creation, and strategic content distribution. This method has worked for the solopreneur as well as the multi-million-dollar company, and now I'm sharing the same systems and tactics with you. Here's to standing out in the sea of sparkle. Welcome to episode 299. In today's episode, I want to discuss a challenging topic, and that topic is change. If you've been in business long enough, you'll inevitably face change. It's crucial to manage it not only for yourself, but also to effectively communicate it to your customers. I did find an interesting statistic about change from the Change Perception Index that 1 in 3 people would avoid change if they could. Not surprising to me. The reality is that people aren't really afraid of change itself, but rather they're afraid of the emotions that kind of come with it, like feelings of losing control, having to learn something new, or feeling unsettled. One of my favorite quotes about resistance to change is from the Harvard Business Review, and they said, "Change is resisted when it makes people feel stupid." It's true, and it's a powerful reminder of why change can be so challenging, because it kind of puts you in situations where you just feel like you don't know what you're doing. So how do you navigate change as a business owner and communicate it to your audience and customers? This episode is all about embracing change gracefully and guiding your customers through a smooth transition so they don't feel lost. Yes, change is uncomfortable, but we're going to tackle it head on today. And in the Goldmine segment, I'll share my personal experiences with change in my business. I do have this persistent fear of making other people angry, even unintentionally, and that's a topic for a therapy session. But change often does bring uncertainty. It's kind of inevitable that something may go wrong or not as planned, and you may accidentally upset someone along the way. So I'll share my personal strategies for coping with this fear and managing change effectively. And just to keep you in the loop, I'll be announcing the grant winner and the runners-up on next week's episode number 300. I can't wait to share the results of the summer marketing grant. As I mentioned, we had a record number of applications, so it's really been a tough challenge going through all of them. But before we get to the solid gold, I'd like to take a moment to remind you that this podcast has both audio and video, so you can either listen on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube by searching Joy Joya. You can support the podcast for free by taking the time not only to subscribe, but also to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Also, if you didn't know, I co-host another podcast called Success with Jewelry with my friend Liz Kantner, who's also a jewelry marketer and the founder of the Stay Gold Collective. We have a free version of the podcast, which is available everywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, as well as a membership community with extended episodes and additional resources. I invite you to check it out if you're hungry for more content. And if you're going to be in New York City for the August trade shows, I want to invite you to a fun meetup and networking opportunity. Liz Kantner and Robin Kramer are hosting a free event on Sunday, August 4th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at HOWN Cocina and Cocktails. Hopefully I said that right, but I'll be attending as well as a special guest, so I would love to meet you if you're in town, and I'll put those details in the show notes as well so that you don't have to just trust my explanation of where it is, but it is on August 4th. And the very last thing before I jump into the main content of this episode, I want to tell you about our free masterclass available only for a limited time. This masterclass will give you valuable insights into our flow so you can master the rhythm of creating compelling content, our process so you can understand the creative strategies used by the Joya team, and speed so you can accelerate your content creation process. By the end of the masterclass, you'll have a simple content plan for an entire month, one full-length blog post optimized for SEO, 4 email campaigns inspired by the blog post, and 12 social media posts repurposed from the blog post and emails. We actually got some feedback about the masterclass from Joya fan Laura, and she said, I just finished watching the masterclass. So good. I can't wait to brainstorm blog topics and start to implement the strategies you showed for repurposing a single blog post into multiple pieces of content. I've heard this before, many times in fact, but with your examples, I feel like it finally clicked with me. Thanks, Laura. Thanks for taking the class and for the feedback. So if you're feeling overwhelmed with content creation for your jewelry brand, you don't want to miss out on this. Visit myjoydeck.com/masterclass. That link will be in the show notes to access it for free and get ready to transform your content creation game. But again, this is only available for a limited time, so take advantage. All right, let's get into today's episode, my sparklers. As I mentioned, this one's all about change, and we're going to tackle it in a two-pronged way. So how do you manage change for yourself and your business? And then how do you communicate it to your customers in a way that retains them rather than alienates them? It's a delicate topic, but as I said, it's inevitable if you've been in business long enough. So what are some examples of change that I've been hearing lately out there in the jewelry world? 1, gold prices are going up. Maybe that means you need to change your prices. And if you want some good tips about this, Tracy Matthews actually just did an episode about it on her podcast, Thrive by Design. Another example of change, maybe you're choosing to pivot from demi-fine to fine, or you're going the other way around. Maybe you feel like you have to adopt new technologies to connect better with your customers. Maybe you have to update marketing tactics to align with current platforms and techniques. Maybe you're shifting business models, like moving from brick and mortar to e-commerce or vice versa, or you're adding wholesale to the mix, or you're moving away from wholesale. Maybe you're rebranding or evolving your brand image to stay relevant. Maybe you're managing changes in staff, enhancing your customer service approach, introducing new product lines, blah, blah, blah. I can go on and on. Those are just a few examples. Change can happen in so many ways and at so many levels in your business. Okay, so first, what are some ways you can manage change as a business owner? First, I want you to change your mindset around change. I think many people get faced with change and they immediately freeze up and get stressed. That's a natural response. Change can be tough, but I think it's important to step back and then consciously talk yourself through it. Change is good because growth can only happen with change. So if growing your business is a goal, then change is a sign that it's happening, even if it's in a small way. 5 years from now, you won't remember all the changes, but you will remember all the ways you leveled up on the other side of change. So again, it's tough while you're in it, but try to reframe it in a positive way. Of course, if it's a change that you're initiating rather than one that's kind of being thrown on you, that can be much easier. If it's change that's kind of being thrown on you, then that can be super hard. But I want you to remember that you're always in the driver's seat. But you can listen to episode 297, How to Take Back Control of Your Marketing, for tips about how to stay grounded and in control even if everything around you feels like it's changing. Then, once you got the mindset part in place, you want to create that change management plan. Okay, that sounds really fancy and corporate, but it can mean whatever you want it to mean. For me, if we're going through change in the business, it really helps me to outline all the steps that need to be taken in order to fully go through the change. But at the same time, try not to worry about anything I can't tackle in the here and now. So I have this longer term to-do list as well as a short term to-do list that's more manageable and doesn't feel overwhelming. And I keep that short term to-do list on my desk at all times. That might feel overwhelming to you. It might be helpful. You have to kind of figure out what's going to help facilitate this. But I know sometimes I get distracted and tired throughout the day. It can be easy for me to space out and even forget just small actionable things that I could just be checking off and knocking out. And so having that short-term to-do list right there in front of me keeps me focused. I'm like, oh yeah, 5 minutes, I can cross off this one thing and keep moving forward toward my goal and through the change. And if you don't have this plan organized, then yes, it's constantly going to feel like an overwhelming, insurmountable thing. So within this plan, you should also have a high-level goal that you're trying to get through on the other side. So for example, if you know that you need to raise your prices because gold prices are changing, then your high-level goal is successfully raising your prices. So work backward from there and think about the steps that need to be taken and how long that process should take. I would probably build in some cushion time in case things get sidetracked along the way, because I know for me, I always underestimate the time that something's going to take because I'm always super positive, we're going to get this done. But life happens, stuff happens, things come up. Give yourself some grace as you're going through a change. Also within the plan, you should keep customer experience in mind always. So even if the change isn't directly related to customer experience, how might it inadvertently impact the customer experience? Because at the end of the day, no matter what you're going through, no matter what kind of change you're trying to manage, your customers are your top priority. So anticipate any way they may be directly or indirectly affected. And as you move toward your goal, be flexible and adaptable. I want you to stay open to new ideas and be willing to pivot when necessary. And that flexibility allows you to adapt to those unforeseen challenges and at the same time seize new opportunities that will probably come up during the change process. Sometimes it's just really hard to navigate change by yourself. So as I just said a few minutes ago, give yourself grace. Don't try to be the hero. It might mean investing in a business coach, a marketing expert, a therapist, a mentor, an employee, an intern, a freelancer, a virtual assistant, whatever you need to get through the change. If you already have a ton on your plate, it's kind of unrealistic to expect you'll be able to navigate any kind of change alone and be okay. All right, so I want to talk now about the second prong of this two-pronged topic. How can you seamlessly communicate change to your customers? So most changes in your business will somehow affect your customers in one way or another, even if it's indirectly. And then how do you keep your customers in the loop? Customers today, they're savvy. They'll pick up on something different, even if you don't tell them. So first things first, you want to give them a heads up, especially if you know about this change in advance. You don't want to spring something on your customers at the very last minute, especially if it affects their experience. That's why planning is so important when it comes to change. Of course, Sometimes change gets sprung on you. Sometimes you have to make change in the 11th hour. But even in that case, as best as you can, jump into planning mode right away and respond quickly. Always, when you're making changes, communicate the benefits to your customers rather than focusing on you and what you have to deal with and what you're going through with the change. And hopefully the change does benefit them in some way. If it doesn't, I need you to manage the change in a way that there will be a positive outcome for the customer, or at least create one or build something into that so that the customer still retains a positive experience. You can use your email campaigns to provide updates or changes. So if there's only a certain segment of customers that this change will impact, then tailor the message based on those people, their interests, maybe their purchase history, whatever is really involved in this change. Let's say you just redid your website and you want your customers to know about the new features, which might be exciting to you, but could confuse customers if they're used to shopping a certain way. Maybe a segmented email campaign would be like, one version goes to people who have never purchased from you, showing all the ways that the new website makes purchasing easier. And maybe there's a different version that goes to people who've already purchased, like highlighting things that maybe they're familiar with and how they've been improved upon, or some new features that never existed before. So that's an example of kind of tailoring the message. And then including screenshots, making it visual, making it personal by pointing out some of your favorite things, perhaps a tutorial about how they can find all of these new features. You can also use social media posts to help communicate change. You can safely assume, especially with Instagram posts and Reels, that your followers may not see it until a few days after you post it. So take that into consideration when you're using social media posts to communicate some of this information that could be time sensitive. Use Instagram stories to share updates about changes that are more time sensitive or that can be explained visually over a series of story slides. And use social media to infuse that more personal aspect of how you're talking about the change. Don't be afraid to get on camera to show authenticity and transparency regarding whatever change you're making. Blog posts are a really good use case. I don't know why I use that term. It's so technical, but blog posts are a good use case for communicating change because you can really get in depth then in explaining changes and the benefits and the whole thing. No, not everyone will read it, but people will skim and pick and choose the information that's relevant to them. So this is a place where you can really share reasoning behind change. This is a place where you can get authentic, build that trust and understanding. And then you can even repurpose the link to that blog post in your email campaign, in your social media post, in case someone wants to know more, because there's always going to be someone who wants to know more. You can even consider including video in that blog post, again, to put that personal touch, especially if you're the one on camera speaking to the audience member. Maybe this change requires a new FAQ or a new help center. So think about updating your FAQs with information about the change or changes. And this will provide a quick reference for anyone seeking answers, or if you need to just point someone in a right direction without having to re-explain yourself again and again. This could be a really good tool. It might be time to revisit your customer service documentation and in general, your website resources. And then the last thing to kind of think about are personalized messages. So for those loyal customers, the ones you definitely don't want to alienate, consider sending more personalized messages or even handwritten notes explaining the changes. And this adds a personal touch and shows that you really value their relationship. And I would hope that you do. So what do you think? Do you think you could be managing change more effectively in your business? How have you dealt with change in the past? Do you have a plan for in case something comes up? Because as I said, the longer you're in business, it's just inevitable that you'll have to manage change. Let me know in a comment on YouTube or DM me on Instagram if this resonates with you. All right, let's get into the gold mine. This is a segment of the podcast where I get personal and share insights on entrepreneurship, mindset, success, growth, and all things business. And in this week's gold mine, I want to share how I manage or try to manage change in my own business. And I hope this feels a little more personal and like you can relate to my story. I know for me, change can be tough, like it is for most people, but it's not really because I'm afraid of new things. Actually, I really like to mix things up. But what I am afraid of when it comes to change is I'm really worried about how it will affect other people. As I said, I always want to shake things up, but I fear how those changes might affect people's happiness. I don't want anyone to be confused. I don't like awkward encounters. I don't like conflict. I don't think I'm necessarily like a people pleaser, but I try to not shake the boat as much as I can. And when you're making changes and you're someone like me who likes making changes, these are two things that are kind of in conflict with each other, okay? So I like making change, but I don't really like people being unhappy or confused about change. One crucial lesson I've learned just overall and how I kind of manage this feeling is the importance of transparency. And it's really all you can do because you can't make everyone happy all the time. But the best you can do is keeping everyone who's potentially affected in the loop, giving them a heads up about upcoming change. Sometimes I even over communicate because I don't want someone to miss a notice or announcement. And I can't assume that someone is just seeing the one email or the one social media post about the change. And if I find out that a change hasn't been well received, because again, you can't please everyone, that's unrealistic to think. Just striving to be honest, authentic, and direct, knowing you can't make everyone happy all the time, that's impossible. But coming at this situation, treating people with respect, being a good listener, being upfront, I think all of that goes a long way, and hopefully most people will forgive anything that maybe disrupts the experience that they're used to or that they enjoyed before. And they'll be much more understanding if you're coming at it in an authentic and transparent way. Another really key strategy for me is planning ahead. When I know a change is coming, I work backward to determine how much time are we going to need to implement the change? How much time are other people going to need to process the information? This can be super tough as a business owner when you're trying to lead the strategy on this, but you're also juggling a million other things. But it's really crucial, or at least, try your best to do it in order to maintain that consistent and positive customer experience, which I think is the most important thing at the end of the day. And as I mentioned earlier, we really try, and what I recommend for you is communicating the benefits of any change to the customer or whoever may be affected by it. Again, even if it's necessary for your business or for operational reasons, and the reason for the change kind of has nothing to do with the customer, figure out a way to highlight how it benefits the customer or make it benefit the customer somehow. Make it worth their while that you're doing this thing. Because again, at the end of the day, It's not about you, it's about the customer. I also really struggle with perfectionist tendencies. I wonder if this episode is turning into a therapy session. Those can be challenging during times of change. And if you, my friend, are a fellow perfectionist or type A, you know what that feels like. And when there's so many moving parts in a change, in change, especially like a complex, multi-phase change, something is bound to go off plan. Something is bound to be imperfect, wrong. It's just, that's the nature of the beast. And I have to remind myself, and I encourage you to do so as well, to be flexible and really treat every hiccup as a lesson for the future. Be like, yeah, okay, acknowledge like this didn't work. Maybe there's some way we could have anticipated this error or unplanned event, but you can't account for everything. You're human. So take it as a lesson for the future. I find maintaining a sense of humor really helps even when things go wrong. And remember too, hopefully this is a comforting thought, that the more you navigate change in your business, the better you'll get at it. I promise. So how do you feel about change? What are some ways that you've managed change lately? Drop your thoughts in a YouTube comment or DM me on Instagram. I'd love to hear your take. Did you have any questions about today's episode? Don't forget to check out our free content repurposing masterclass, which you can access by visiting myjoydeck.com/masterclass, link in the show notes. It's only available for a limited time. And by the end of the masterclass, you'll have a simple content plan for an entire month, a full-length blog post, 4 email campaigns, and 12 social media posts. If you want to reach out, you can always email me, Larissa. That's LARYSSA @joyjoya.com. And if you love this podcast, please share it with a friend who'd appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe as well as leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're completely new to digital marketing, then you'll want to purchase and read a copy of my book, Jewelry Marketing Joy. Visit joyjoya.com/book for more information.